Okay, thanks to everybody for joining us this afternoon. Salesforce user groups are open sessions for any Salesforce users to join and find out about the latest product updates and discuss use cases with a forum of other users and configuration experts. Whilst we wait for any latecomers, we're going to play this short video showcasing some of Salesforce's highlights from the previous year.
You surprised us. You challenged us. You inspired us.
We had an idea. It was such a simple solution, but such a big one to start helping people.
You reminded us that business can be the greatest platform for change.
With the pandemic hitting, it bred a lot of uncertainty.
Keeping staff and students safe. Like, what does safety look like?
We recognized that to get through this crisis, we had to rapidly evolve our digital capability.
But most important, you kept it moving forward. Thank you.
We didn't skip a beat. We can run our business from anywhere.
We need to embrace the future and move forward and bring our organizations along.
We moved fast, determined.
You forward more than 50 million pieces of protective equipment. How did you do that?
Together, we came up with big, bold ideas.
Salesforce made it very easy for us to pivot during a very difficult time.
Salesforce launched Work.com.
The software aimed at helping companies safely reopen their offices.
We kept it moving forward.
Trust is the cornerstone of our relationship with our customers.
Without customers trusting us, we wouldn't have a business.
We were able to produce a very robust multi-campus contact tracing solution in 3 days.
And it was the information that they needed to move forward.
So after all that 2020 sent our way, do we go back to the past? Or do we start something new?
Welcome to Dreamforce 2020. It's a Dreamforce we'll never forget.
Salesforce buying Slack is among the biggest deals ever in the software industry.
We believe we can accomplish in the next 5 years what it might have taken us 20 years to do otherwise.
We see an all-digital, work-from-anywhere world, one that's no longer limited by outdated ways of thinking and working.
With Customer 360, we can create a single source of truth that allows us to create extraordinary experiences for our customers.
We're a better company now than we were a year ago.
More connected, more productive, more fluid.
It's the thing that we all can see. We have a window into the same picture.
Less complicated, more trusted, more sustainable.
For the first time, we're actually going to bring sustainability to the customer engagement.
We want to be positioned for the future.
There's no going back. This is the new status quo.
And together, we'll keep it moving forward. It's going to be a whole new Salesforce, where the future works.
So for anybody who joined during that video, Salesforce user groups are open sessions for Salesforce users to join and find out about the latest product updates. You can also tune into today's session via our YouTube channel, should you want to watch this in the comfort of your living room on your smart TV, and you just need to search Comnexa on YouTube. So in this session, we have a combination of our customers and other Salesforce users who might be meeting us for the first time. For their benefit, Comnexa is a Salesforce consulting partner specializing in implementations and improving the Salesforce experience of our customers. Based in the Channel Islands and in the UK, but service customers in many countries around the world. We tend to work in the financial services, professional services, and tech sectors, but have worked in a variety of industries too. We are also joined today by our partners from Cloud Coach. Cloud Coach is the leading project management solution built on the Salesforce platform. Many of our team recently passed examinations to become Cloud Coach certified administrators and power users, meaning we can configure their solution alongside our customers' existing Salesforce solutions. Dylan and Andy from Cloud Coach will be delivering a demo of the Cloud Coach solution today. For those of our customers based in Jersey who signed up early enough, We are working with a local charity called Berester Street Kitchen to deliver some afternoon tea treats. Berester Street Kitchen is a social enterprise providing education, training and employment for people with learning disabilities and autism. So thank you to their team for delivering these today. So first on our agenda is the latest Salesforce Spring 21 release update. I'm going to hand over to Dan to tell you about these. If anybody has any questions, please write them in the Q&A function and we'll respond to these at the end of the presentation. Now, over to Dan.
Thanks very much, Phil. So in this session today, we're going to be looking at updates to Sales Cloud, which is the core CRM. We're also going to be looking at some flow and automation updates. So talking about if we want to create automation in Salesforce, some really cool new ways of doing that. And we're also going to look at marketing automation updates. So I know a lot of our audience here use products such as Salesforce Pardot. So we're also going to explore that. Just before we go a bit deeper into some of the new features that we've selected, I just wanted to talk about the concept of the releases. So ever since Salesforce started in year 1999, all Salesforce customers were always using the latest versions of the product, and there were 3 releases a year. What this meant is that there was no need to perform upgrades, to invest in upgrades, and there was continual innovation added to the platform time and time again. This is really important now more so than ever before. So if we look at the world, rapidly evolving digital capabilities, I've heard a lot of times that in the past year, we've seen about 5 years worth of digital innovation happening. So companies are really speeding up their innovation. And if we look at this work from anywhere trend, we look at the current trends that are happening, it's more important than ever before to ensure that you're using the very latest technology, the very latest innovations to empower your workforce, and also to ensure that you really deeply understand your customers. So Salesforce released 3 versions a year, and we run these user groups to try and raise awareness of the new features, and also to encourage everybody. Salesforce is not just a system that we implement and then it's done. It's continually evolving. Your users will have continual changing requirements. It should be continually moving forward, continually improving. And we really think it's important to recognize that and to raise awareness of what's happening. So without further ado, we're going to be talking about the Spring 21 release. On the screen now, you can see the timeline. So for each release of Salesforce, we have a timeline that's been released, and it shows from when the notes are released, which is what the new features will be available. We can then start to use those features in sandboxes and testing them. And it also then shows when the release is deployed. So from this timeline, we can see that throughout January and February, the release was being deployed. So this means that everybody should be now using the Spring 21 release. And how do we know which release, which version of Salesforce we're using? It's actually pretty simple. So if you're a user of Salesforce, when you log in, we usually have a loading screen, unless we've branded it with your branding. And on the top right of this screen, we can see a bear, which is called Cody, holding a love heart. And this is the logo for the Spring 21 release. Each release of Salesforce has a logo that the customers can vote on if they're particularly into that sort of thing. So everyone watching should be on the Spring 21 release, and I'm going to go through some really nice features that I've identified that you could be using in your businesses almost immediately. So first of all, this isn't particularly related to the Spring release, but it's something that we just wanted to raise awareness of. Salesforce have been emailing a lot of customers, letting them know that Salesforce for Outlook is being retired. And this has created a lot of concern from people, because we know a lot of people really rely on the Salesforce sidebar and the Outlook integration. And it's a really pivotal feature that most companies use. What is actually being retired is the thing on the left. which is what we would call Salesforce for Outlook, but it's actually the really old version of the Outlook integration. So we have two versions of Outlook integration. We have Salesforce for Outlook, and we have Salesforce on the Microsoft Store. Salesforce for Outlook is on the left. Salesforce for the Microsoft Store is on the right. So what is being retired is the version on the left. And this version has been around actually since I first started using Salesforce, so that was 2011, and is quite old. So I know that the vast majority of our own customers are using Salesforce on the Microsoft Store, which is the version that is not being retired. So please don't be alarmed if you get an email from Salesforce saying that the Outlook integration is being retired, because what it most likely is saying is that the old version of Salesforce for Outlook is being retired. And if you look into it, it's probably the version that you're not using. So just to clarify, Salesforce Outlook integration is remaining. The reason we are retiring the old version is Salesforce really want to improve the version on the Microsoft Store, and they want to focus on one version rather than having to maintain a legacy version. So that's really important just to start with. If we then look further at desktop integration, there's two ways which we can actually automatically sync meetings, events, and emails into Salesforce. There's a mechanism called Salesforce Lightning Sync, and there's a mechanism called Einstein Activity Capture. And what these two systems do is we can configure them. So if we have any meetings or we have any emails to and from our customers or our prospects, we can actually automatically sync those from your Exchange server or your Google server if you're using Gmail, and we can put them into Salesforce. And we can also automatically associate them with the correct records. So if we have email addresses that match, or we have people who work at companies, we can match these automatically. So this is really interesting. Salesforce have announced that Lightning Sync is being retired. So any new customers who are trying to turn on this sort of syncing features will not be able to activate Lightning Sync. Lightning Sync is still going to be around for a few more years, but it's being phased out. And it's being replaced with a system called Einstein Activity Capture. So if you're looking at how to further improve your desktop integration, Einstein Activity Capture is 100% the way to go. It's also really clever because using Einstein, which is the Salesforce AI tool, it also scans your content and it brings up these sort of thoughts about what Einstein thinks you should do. So in this example, we can see that the customer's emailed and they've requested a meeting. So the insight is that scheduling has been requested. If a customer emails and they're talking about competitors or they're talking about pricing, Einstein will also surface these really interesting insights around your emails and meetings. So Einstein Activity Capture is the way forward for desktop integration. What Einstein Activity Capture also allows you to do is we can create very neat dashboards showing who has the best strength of relationship with customers or accounts or opportunities based on the amount of activity that they're doing. So this example here is a company-wide example, and it's showing us who's had the most activities with certain accounts. So let's imagine we're a financial services business and we're trying to work out who has the best strength of relationship with an intermediary. We can utilize this activity dashboard to actually work this out and visualize it. So it may be that someone else in the organization has a far better relationship and far more activities than you, but you don't necessarily know that. And this dashboard can be placed in Salesforce, and we can view both a company-wide overview, and we can also place it on the account or the contact record of Salesforce. So if we open an account record, which will be a company or intermediary, we could immediately view, when we're looking at this record, who has the best strength of relationship. So Einstein activity capture is something which is extremely powerful, and I think is something that a lot of companies will want to be adopting this coming year. For the vast majority of Salesforce customers, you actually have some Einstein activity capture licenses included in your packages for free. So it's well worth looking to see if this is something that you could be using, but you're not using. So I'm now going to move on just to talk about MFA. And when we talk about MFA, we mean multi-factor authentication. We know a lot of people in the past few weeks have been receiving emails or phone calls from Salesforce, letting them know that from February 2022, multi-factor authentication will be required. And this is a step further than the current multi-factor authentication that I know the vast majority of customers are using. So at the moment, if you log into Salesforce from maybe a new location, a new device, you will be sent an email or a text message with a validation code. From February 2022, Salesforce are going to insist that we use a authenticator app or a third-party authenticator app. Or if you have authentication keys already, they can be integrated with Salesforce. And this is to really improve security, basically. So this is going to be a requirement from February 2022. We have plenty of notice to start getting ready for this. And there's a few options that exist. So the most simple option is there is a free app called Salesforce Authenticator that can be downloaded onto people's mobile devices. And when you try to log into Salesforce, you will get a push notification on your mobile device and you'll be asked to confirm its validity. So this is the easiest way and it's completely free. If you already have an application that you're using for other systems in your business, we can integrate with those systems. Or if you have security keys or devices, it's also possible to integrate with those systems. So this is a bit of a change, and it's something that we do need to start working towards. So certainly for our customers, we'll be contacting you to let you know the options and to work through what we need to do, if anything, before the deadline. But we do have 12 months to do this. That's very achievable. If we move on, in the spring release specifically, Salesforce have really improved Einstein scoring for opportunities. So Salesforce used to have scoring capabilities for opportunities. And what this means is it's looking at all the data in your Salesforce org, which is your version of Salesforce that you're using, and it's trying to match up the dots. So if it knows that commonly opportunities are lost for a reason, it will present its feedback. So it's using AI and machine learning to really deeply understand your opportunities and your patterns, and then to give you recommendations around what you should be doing. In the spring release, Salesforce have done a few things. So previously, you had to have over 200 opportunities closed in order for this to start generating predictions and to start giving feedback. That 200 limit has now been removed. So what this means is that many more people will be able to start using opportunity scoring. And in the spring release, Salesforce have also really improved the scoring algorithms. So the scoring algorithms have been further improved from what they were previously. So if you don't already use Einstein opportunity scoring, we highly recommend looking at this, and we think it could make a real business impact to your organization. Another additional feature, well, actually features that have been focused on in the spring release, is around user adoption. So when we implement Salesforce, we know from our customers that quite often you have very unique business processes and you have really unique ways that you want your users to use Salesforce that are maybe outside of more vanilla or standard Salesforce implementations. So quite often I'm asked, do you have any documentation which you can send us that shows us how to use Salesforce so we can provide it to our users? And quite often the answer is yes, there's a lot of Salesforce documentation, but it's not very specific to your business. So I'm not sure just providing generic documentation helps with user adoption. So in the spring release, Salesforce have added this guidance center, which we can completely customize. So if you have specific tasks or specific business processes that you need your users to follow, we can add this guidance into Salesforce. But instead of it being Salesforce specific, it's possible for your system administrators to actually customize the guidance so it's specific to your company. So if we have a specific opportunity process, or we have a specific lead process, or we need to collect KYC information, we can actually use Salesforce to document this process and help our users follow it and help our users adopt the system. And it's completely interactive, really, really nice. So if we wanted to do this, we would go to Setup, and hopefully, if you go to Setup in Salesforce, you'll now see a section called In-App Guidance. And this is where we would go to start configuring this sort of custom guidance. And this is available from the Spring 21 release. And we know from past experience that the #1 challenge implementing these systems is user adoption and ensuring that users are following your processes correctly and users are engaged. So I highly recommend looking at creating custom guidance and custom help for your users of your system. If we move on, we can now take this a step further also. So if we are creating new records, so we have somebody creating a new customer record or somebody creating a new lead or a new deal or opportunity, we really want to make sure that they follow our process. So they're putting our data in, they're doing it the way that we want our business to do it. And we can enforce that. So we can have required fields, we can have what we call validation rules that check what they put in looks correct. But a far better way, I think, is educating users on the way that you want things to be done. And using this in-app guidance, when users create records, we can also create completely customized guidance such as this. But it can be really specific to your business. So if you have things that your business needs, we can actually write this up and we can have users have this guidance when they're creating records or whatever they're doing. So this is really cool as well. And I think will really help with user adoption and data quality. So again, I highly recommend looking at this. Another feature which Salesforce have released is a feature called Salesforce Meetings. So quite often in this work from anywhere world, we're having Zoom calls, team calls with our clients or our intermediaries. And it can be quite hard if you're having these calls to actually view all the information that you need to, #1 about the meeting, #2 about the intermediary or the prospect, and #3 to take notes about the meeting. So quite often I find that I'd have multiple windows open and I'd be trying to take notes, and it's hard. Salesforce has developed Salesforce Meetings, which is a stream that we can customize, and we can have everything on one screen for our users when they're hosting meetings to look at. So they can look at automated insights that have been generated. They can look at any documents related to the meeting. They can view who's attending and they can view all the latest information. They can also view the latest activity about the meeting or about the intermediary. And they can also view a note section where they can take notes. The Salesforce Meetings is really, really powerful. Currently, it's only available for users who are using the Ultimate or Performance edition of Salesforce. So it's not available for users who are using the Professional or Enterprise edition right now. I imagine that this will be rolled out in the future. So if you have those versions, it's definitely something to look at. If you don't have those versions, I think it's something to keep in mind and to look at later, because I think this is extremely powerful. An extra item that has been added in the Spring 21 release is in 2018, in one of the releases, Salesforce added this usage app section where we could track who's using the system. And we could track what they're doing. We could track how many times they log in. We could track who isn't logging in, so we can try and encourage them to use the system. And that was all great. In this release, Salesforce have further improved this. So we can now also track how are people using multi-factor authentication, how are they adopting general security practice. And also if we're using single sign-on, we can track how many people are using single sign-on compared to their Salesforce username and password. So if you haven't already looked at the Lightning usage app, again, I highly recommend using this because it will help you with user adoption. And we know this is really important. One other thing to note, which is completely unrelated to any release, is that Salesforce does support single sign-on. So if you have single sign-on within your organizations already, and you don't use it for Salesforce, it's well worth looking at because again, it will help with user adoption and it will also help address security concerns. So highly recommend looking at single sign-on. An additional bit of sort of guidance is we can now use Salesforce to create what we call in-app learning. So here we could create learning libraries and we can assign specific items to specific users or groups. So if you have different divisions or you have different departments in your organization, it's now possible when we're creating this guidance and these learnings to actually even further tailor it depending on what sort of user is using it. So I know quite often we have companies with multiple jurisdictions or multiple service lines. We could use Salesforce now to completely tailor the learning experience depending on what the user is doing. In the Spring release, there has been much more focus placed on what we call flows. So in Salesforce, there's three main ways of creating automation. There's workflow rules, there's process builder, and there's flows. What we've seen recently is a lot of the Salesforce development effort has gone into flows, and a lot of new features, which we covered in our previous user group, have been added to flows. So what I'm recommending is if you're looking to create automations within your Salesforce environments, that you 100%, where possible, use flows, because flows are going to be the future of automation for Salesforce. So let's not use process builder or maybe workflow rules unless we really need to. Let's try and use flows for more complicated automation tasks. And flow is a drag and drop builder where we can use it to create business automation. And on screen now, we can see an example of just that. An additional really cool feature of flows is we can now use flows to trigger surveys to be sent, but we can completely tailor the surveys based on the flow. So if we have, for example, an onboarding workflow within a company, and we want to make sure the client submits all the KYC documentation correctly, and we follow through a business process, at the end of that process, we can use flow to send a completely tailored survey out to that customer or that intermediary to ask them how it went. And this is something that's now available as part of the Spring release. Moving on to talk a little bit about marketing automation, and I know there's some marketing people attending this event, and also customers of ours that use Pardot. There's a few things that have happened recently and are currently in the process of happening. So if you previously logged in at pardot.com to use Pardot and you had separate usernames and passwords, that now has been disabled. So you now have to log into Pardot using your Salesforce credentials. So it's now no longer possible to have separate Pardot usernames and passwords. So that's something that happened. It was actually enforced last week, and it's something to, I think, remind everybody of. So if any of your users are having issues accessing Pardot, it's probably because they're trying to log in with their Pardot username and password, and the single sign-on hasn't been enabled properly. So that's something that probably needs to be looked at. What Salesforce are also doing with Pardot, as we can see on screen now, is traditionally you would use Pardot, it'll be a separate web application. You would use Salesforce and they'd be integrated together, so there'd be an API talking to each other. Salesforce are bringing Pardot much more into the CRM system. So it's now possible using what we call the Pardot Lightning app to use Pardot completely within the CRM system. So if you don't already have this activated, I think it's something to talk to us about, something to look at. It's called the Pardot Lightning app, and it allows users to seamlessly switch from using the CRM system into the marketing system, but it's all in one platform instead of having to log in elsewhere or have multiple tabs open. So Pardot Lightning app is really important. And why is this important? The vast majority of new features that we are seeing added around marketing are being added within this Lightning app, so not necessarily in the separate Pardot application. So it's really important to try and get this activated and get your users using this over the next few months, because I think it will set you up well for when new features are added, you'll be able to use them immediately instead of having to start this change process and get people using it. So the Pardot app is really important. On the topic of using the Pardot Lightning app, it's now possible to create emails for Pardot, but using the Salesforce email template builder. And this is traditionally, we would use this in the CRM to create email templates, but we can now use this to create Pardot email templates. So we're using one system to create all of our email templates. If you don't have this activated, please talk to us about this, or please look at activating it, because this is the future for creating email templates and emails that we're sending out to people. So if you're looking to create new email templates, or you're looking to do things in Pardot, please make sure you have this activated, because this is the future, and any new features that are added, I'm anticipating will be added to this rather than the Pardot web app. Those were my highlights from the Spring 21 release. Hopefully you found them useful. And as Phil said, if you have any questions, drop them into the Q&A section in Zoom. And at the end of this webinar, we'll try and answer them for you, hopefully, if I know the answers.
Thanks, Dan. As Dan mentioned, it's important to note that what we've just covered is a handful of the updates from the several hundred updates that have just been released. So if there are any of your products that haven't been covered today, please feel free to bring it up with us and we can arrange a private session to go through those with you. Without further ado, I want to pass over to Dylan and Andy from Cloud Coach. As we mentioned, Cloud Coach is a leading project management solution built on Salesforce, and it's certainly our project management solution of choice. So Dylan and Andy, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to jump in here. Let's see, can you make me a host? I want to make sure I can share my screen as the next step.
You should already be able to share your screen.
Yeah, I'm getting a prompt, host disabled participant screen sharing, just so you know.
Try it one more time and it should work.
There we go. Cool. Progress.
Yeah, and Dylan, while you're getting those slides set up, I'll chime in. So, hey, everybody, my name is Andy Stoffer. So I manage our sales team at Cloud Coach. And then the other voice you're hearing, that's Dylan Portillas. He is one of our solutions engineers, one of our product experts. And we're much better at product rather than me creating slides. So we're going to jump into our solution pretty quickly. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about Cloud Coach prior, sort of set the stage, and then we'll certainly get familiar. About Cloud Coach, we specialize, really to sum up this slide, we specialize in project management. We eat, breathe, live projects. And one of the reasons that we can do that is because of our partnership with Salesforce, and of course, all the thing that provides just being a part of that ecosystem, right? Being able to work with partners like Comnexa to help carry out our solution to our customers. So, Dylan, if you don't mind going to the next slide, this really sums it up pretty nicely, and then we'll jump into the product. Cloud Coach, we are a Salesforce App Exchange partner. So what that really represents is sort of what we're sandwiched in between here as far as native solutions go within the platform. And what this platform allows for Cloud Coach is to focus all of our maintenance, all of our R&D into the usability of the tool as it relates to project management and professional service automation. One of the reasons we can really do that is when it comes to sort of that bottom layer, the infrastructure. This is all maintained by Salesforce. So Cloud Coach, Comnexa, native Salesforce solutions, other App Exchange partners, we're all beneficiaries of this platform because when it comes to system performance, this is an infrastructure that's trusted by, 200,000 organizations globally now. When it comes to integration, we're tapping into that same open API framework. We can tap into middleware solutions. And then most importantly, when it comes to the core capabilities as far as how you can build solutions and then perhaps customize that further, everything is maintained by Salesforce. We're using their admin tools for adjusting page layouts or setting up automation. So what Cloud Coach does is we corral all of this into a packaged solution as it relates to projects. You can still extend it further, and that's where partners like Comnexa come in. And then, of course, the advantage of the platform as well is this can all roll up into a single reporting engine, and you can extend that even further perhaps with other analytic tools or Tableau, a recent Salesforce acquisition. So certainly a great partnership for us. What it has allowed for Cloud Coach is we work in a lot of different industries. Projects are everywhere. We see projects really take part within the customer lifecycle within the platform already, tagging in on things like onboarding projects, maybe ongoing professional service projects or customer success projects that are sort of managing annual contracts. But the platform itself also lends itself nicely just for internal projects even. So we even have customers that their introduction to the platform was to manage things like perhaps their IT initiatives or business PMOs managing capital investments over the next 3-5 years. So we've seen it all, and let's go ahead and just show you, and then we'll do a pretty high level demonstration today, and then hopefully we'll have some questions at the end that we can address if we want to actually dive into anything a bit more specific to the crowd. So Dylan, I think you can take it away. You still there, Dylan?
Perfect. Can you guys hear me okay?
There we go.
Yep, perfect. All right. So yeah, just stemming off of what Andy really mentioned there, just revolving around, the customer from your environment. I mean, that could come from several different directions, really revolving around those different objects, whether that be accounts, opportunities, cases, or even portfolios at that strategic level up above. But in my case, as you can see, I kind of just landed on a customer 360 type dashboard here. So within this dashboard, again, we're just pulling a few metrics, a few specific reports, and we find that this changes per environment, just depending on that business use case behind the scenes. But in this case, again, this is revolving around that customer specific location there. So as you can see, I mean, I can drill right into maybe account health from projects here as a good example. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And you can see I can just use, again, that standard, Salesforce functionality, that reporting matrix here, just to return that detail. As I scroll through, I can find and correlate all those different accounts as well as the related opportunities, related projects to those different accounts. And again, the emphasis there is these projects can exist really anywhere within your Salesforce infrastructure. You're going to have those different objects. Again, it could be tied to an opportunity. It could be tied to a case. The opportunities for those different projects, again, are endless. Those really can be tied in several different ways. Whether you, again, are onboarding, offboarding, professional services type projects, customer success, internal versus external as well. As you scroll down, again, just endless opportunities there we're finding. As I scroll through, I'll just look for a good example here. But you can see, again, we're just displaying maybe the particular account as well as those different projects that are associated there. One important note is we are displaying a health metrics there. So this, again, we can roll up details surrounding those different projects and again, surface that detail. In this case, it's just a little traffic light. This can be surfaced in several different ways, but again, all contributing factors around that particular account can roll up to that project health or that health indication surrounding that particular account. But I'll go ahead and drill right into that account now. And you can see now we have the general details surrounding that account. So this account, we have related opportunities here on the right as well. And then here are those same projects that I mentioned. So with that in mind, these 3 different projects, you can see those health indications. And again, we can key all sorts of details off of that, push those down into those projects. We can even tie in automation for the project creation. Again, just keeping that a very simple process. There is manual project creation or the automated approach, just, when that opportunity reaches a certain stage, or once again, something within the pipeline reaches that certain stage, maybe that project gets created automatically. So moving right along, I'm going to jump right into our project, project overview. So I'm just going to click on that drop down and go into our show Gantt view. So this gives us a really broad overview of those specific projects that were associated with that one account. Obviously, we can filter back up and grab all of the projects as well from a little bit greater detail. But this, again, is that kind of 100-foot view and allows us to see those details spread across that time period that we have really predefined here. So again, 3 different projects. We've got some visual indications of which projects are running behind. It's really kind of a good detail right there just to see if, again, some intervention is needed to kind of dive in and see where things are at. As I click through on the top as well, you have like project list here. So if you wanted to kind of split that up into a flattened out view, opposed to viewing that Gantt structure, again, simple as just clicking on this button here. Same goes for filtering even further based off of the type of project you may be dealing with. So you may have, several projects associated with one account, for example, or several projects associated with one opportunity, for example. So again, filtering those and navigating that structure is something we always keep in mind. We want to make that very simple for you. So again, it's always filtered just with general navigation buttons here at the top, as you can see. As I take it a step further, I can see that health indication here that I mentioned previously on that view for accounts. So you can see in my case, for one of these projects, it is trending down. So that's just the overall health. We can tie in all sorts of attributes with that, such as timeline health, resource health, financial, customer, and scope. And all sorts of details within your environment can, again, impact those details there. So again, we can kind of display that here just for that high level view of just where the system needs attention or where that project needs attention. And again, you can kind of see that trending up or down. Stage gate integration, as well as you have your milestone piece. So really tying in revenue recognition, with your process or even, other outside, attributes within the process that you want to tie in with your project completion goals. So lots of automation opportunities around that. So again, several layers to what we can do with milestones. We see a lot of questions coming up around that, especially recently in relation to, again, maybe financial support when a project is progressing and really tying in those details and rolling up those milestone notifications and things like that. We'll shift back over to the Gantt and we'll go ahead and just dive into maybe a project here specifically. So I can just click on the drop down here and navigate right into timelines for an example here. So you can see right away, we're just displaying the general details surrounding one particular project here. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink this down just to take advantage of some real estate. But we have quite a robust Gantt view here. So this is just kind of a messy example of a project here. But again, our simplicity, you can see the dependency chain very quickly. You have the critical path options, and we can also drag and drop, which is pretty handy too. So you just take the task and you simply drag it over, and you can specify those start and end dates of again, any changes that might occur. Same goes for validation around that. So you can see if I just drag this one over, I get a kind of a confirmation that pops up right away. So again, really robust, but also simplicity is really the key piece of this. We want to keep it very simple to do really what you're trying to achieve within the system here when it comes to navigating and managing a project. You have your phases, you have your tasks, and then also when you click into a task, you might have subtasks associated. So we do have those details here on the right-hand side. Besides the Gantt view, a lot of users are not really used to that Gantt structure. So we can flatten that out into a board or a simplified kind of Kanban structure here. So just simple drag and drop over. Same goes for list view here. This is like an Excel view when navigating those different tasks and phases as you navigate through. This also allows us to really manipulate multiple tasks at once if you wanted to mark several off as completed, for an example there. And same goes for phase view here. This really flattens out that structure in a way where you can navigate the timelines as well as read those dependency structures really from that one view here instead of navigating that Gantt view if needed. So this is one example of a project I did want to kind of touch on. We do offer, obviously, when it comes to maybe even like an agile type approach. So I can just bring up an example of that where you might have a Kanban structure associated. So again, we can kind of go in that direction as well, just depending on that project structure that you guys are after. So I'll go back another step here. So back into the Gantt view. One thing we like to emphasize as well is, we are working within the Salesforce system. So tying in with all of those metrics and tying in with those collaboration features is always important as well. So on the right-hand side, when we get into the task-specific options, I did touch briefly on your different task-specific options, such as your subtasks and things. But we do have Chatter, which is a really helpful feature as well. So collaborating on this project, everybody's really manipulating details within this project, maybe associating documents and things. So surfacing, again, the details around maybe Chatter can be a very valuable tool within the system as you extend that in certain locations. So more on that on the left-hand side, we can attach documents. If you do attach a document within Chatter, for example, that will roll up right into the functionality directly in this project. So even when you click on one of these documents, you can see we're previewing the file in real time here. And also supporting links, if those documents reside in other systems or even, like such as Box or OneDrive or something along those lines, again, we can display those details right here as well. Controls allows us to keep track of really those risk matrix maybe associated with a particular project. So this is always really helpful to keep track of as well, maybe change requests and rolling up those details. So with that in mind, we can tie those in with your project templates as these get created. You might be dealing with really common, maybe a customer sign off or budgetary kind of navigation as it goes through the process that you need to keep track of. So again, you can put in kind of predefined tickets or risks that you might be associating as a project progresses. And again, these can be kept track of here. And you can see we kind of have a matrix, which includes just a general heat map of those different ones. This might take just a second to load. But once we do go through this process, you can kind of see, again, the importance of those tickets as you click through, and you can kind of drill through and, again, really get that top level view of how to dive in and read through those. And lastly, you have like change requests around tickets as well. So we can define details around that, such as, if a project scope has changed, if something has changed within the project details, and again, your budget might have changed, that scope. So with that in mind, you can set all sorts of approvals around this, but this is a really helpful feature to kind of roll up into those project timelines automatically once it has kind of been approved by the necessary parties as you go through that process. But again, change requests can be a really helpful feature as well as you go through that. Won't spend too much time on resources here, but resourcing, we've got a few different layers of resourcing. You can see in this case, with this particular project, we're filtering based off of those different work types or roles within the system. So each individual task, you might have, again, a specific department or role that wants to handle that particular task. So again, all that can be predefined just with that objective, again, to have those users ready for you to decide if you want to use that user or use that role and really kind of filter out that list for assigning those different resources out. And we have forecasting around that as well, kind of seeing that as a whole within the organization, which is always a very helpful piece as well, just to kind of see how your environment's doing, as well as if you can kind of take on more tasks as a project progresses or if a new project is coming down the pipeline. And I did mention already within our financial piece, really how we can tie in those details as far as maybe project time is concerned within a project. So, as users are tracking time against different tasks and things like that, again, we can tie that up and really relate that to those different milestones, as we mentioned. So several layers of options there, but we can even get a little bit more granular with, tying in just certain day-to-day expenses that are really being tracked around your particular project. So I do want to kind of shift gears here. At this point, those are kind of some of the nitty-gritty details surrounding our projects. I do want to kind of show our end user portal at this point, but at this point, I'm going to go ahead and shift gears. And again, this is the end user portal, which is our My Day piece. So you can see in my case, not the best example here because I've got several overdue tasks, but it's also a really good indication of what I need to be accomplishing in the next given week. So as I dive in, as I look into this, I can kind of see what is on my task list, what is assigned to the user that I'm logged into the system with, the due dates that are on each individual task. As I click through, you can see those same task specific options. So those users do get that general detail there. And they can also enter time against these as well. So it's always a really important piece is just how we're tracking time, against those individual project details. And you can see on my day here, we're displaying a few different options. We're displaying task details. So all in relation to those projects that we've been discussing up until this point. We also have tickets, which could be, again, those change requests or those risks that might be under my name here. And then lastly, we do have the Salesforce tasks as well. So several users within the system might be taking advantage of, again, Salesforce tasks that may or may not relate directly to a project, but other details within the Salesforce organization. So again, we can keep track of those and again, just modify those details directly from here. Another great benefit is if they do need to change a due date or something, move that up or move that over. Again, it's just a simple drag and drop on those as well. So lots of features built in to this My Day portal, especially even around time tracking. You can see if I drill into this over here, this tab on the top, we have daily assistance kind of built in to keep track, and even more on the Genius approach. We're keeping track of really projects that user did basically edit within the system. So any modifications on those or any changes to those, again, those will be surfaced with the Genius integration here, just to make sure, again, that user didn't maybe forget to enter time against that. So kind of like a no excuse approach, but just making it a very simple process as they go through. It's very good. So I want to make sure I'm using everybody's time effectively here, but that's kind of a good starting point. If you guys have any questions on, I guess, more specific details, please feel free to let us know as well. I'm more than happy to kind of dive into things near the end of the webinar today.
We have had one question through, Dylan, which is about functionality in Cloud Coach. And this person asked, can you use this for any projects, including something like client onboarding?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question there. And that's a very common use case we support today. So those project examples I was showing previously. So this is, again, just one very generic example. And it was built off of most likely a project template. So depending on the type of projects you guys are dealing with, we can help you kind of structure these project templates. So exactly in your example, we can build that out and have those kind of ready to grow and also manipulate as a project progresses or new projects become available. So yes, to answer your question.
And then there's a supplementary question as well to that, which is, could it be used as an ERP solution to manage business workflows? I suspect that's probably come from one of our finance customers, probably sort of comparing it to solutions that they use in their space. So for managing business workflows alongside client data.
Yes, and in most cases too, we find that we're kind of integrating depending on the systems that they're using. So when it comes to even like the financial details, we can keep track of all the details associated with that project as it rolls up or down. But then we can also choose to kind of push those details out, whether it comes to those invoicing details, we can keep track of all the metrics, all of, again, that time tracked against that individual project. And again, we can push those details out into other systems or even pull those details back in. But yes, to answer that question, we've got a combination of features that can work in that direction.
Mm-hmm. I think we're more of a professional service automation tool, and perhaps lighter on the financial workflows that you might be thinking. But yeah, the integration is absolutely feasible.
Brilliant, thank you. We have another one here, which is, would you mind demonstrating the assignment of project resources based upon skills, experience, and availability?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I can just drill in. You can see in this example, this one task here, there's nobody currently assigned. So I just went ahead and clicked into that task here. And this task, I already have a role or work type assigned to this task. You can see that's just my legal work type. So I can drill right into here, or I can just drill into that work type as well. And what this is going to do is this is going to filter all the users in my organization based off of this work type. So it's going to identify, again, these users and make sure that they match this role before I can start assigning them out. Beyond that as well, we do see an indication of what their project load looks like on a given day period throughout that task duration, which again helps you kind of filter and just see that summary right off the bat here when you are assigning out those new resources. But it's simply just clicking the plus button once you find the resource you're looking for. And in my case, once I do associate those here, you can see it splits that load right off the bat here between 50%. However, if you wanted one user to kind of take a more of a management approach on that, again, you can specify 20 versus 80%. So you can really get pretty granular on that load base as well. But it's just as simple as that as far as assigning those different resources.
Brilliant, thank you. I think we opened a bit of a can of worms. Well, lots of questions now, actually. We have one which is integration with Jira possible?
Yep, that's one of our most common ones. So yeah, Jira's been coming up more and more often. We see, oftentimes it's even in relation to maybe those tickets or surfacing details around those tickets, and maybe even pushing certain statuses out to Jira, reading that back and forth. But to answer your question, yes, we've dealt with that quite a number of times this year, in fact.
Brilliant, thank you. It would be great to have a look at the time card time logging, if that's possible, please.
Let's see, I might not have a good dashboard in place for that one currently. Let me go ahead and pause. I'll go ahead and look into that briefly right now. But
hey Dylan, I just heard the time card tracking as far as revisiting the timesheet.
Let's see. So just head back to my day here.
Yeah, I think just a review of that. Is that the question?
I think that is the question.
Yeah.
So I think how people can use this to log time and capture the time that the team are working on.
Perfect. Okay.
Well, we should probably start with also addressing that time can be entered really any step of this process that we demoed today, whether you're working on the task within the Gantt or within My Day, and then the time card represents sort of the compilation of all those entries at the end of the week. So do you mind kind of walking through that, Dylan?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I jumped right back into the My Day port, so that end user interface, and I did navigate right over into the time piece. So this is, again, where that user is going to live to navigate the different tasks that they may be assigned to. So even jumping back to that baseline, that landing page here, this is going to surface, again, all of the details or all the tasks that user is assigned to. So it's very easy to click through, and again, maybe whether it be a ticket or a task, just entering time directly against here. Obviously in my case, I'm displaying a utilization category. This is going to be kind of suppressed in any type of production environment. But again, this is just an example of what we can keep track of or at that level as you go through. But again, adding time is simply just inputting the details there. When they are clicked into this task, it does kind of increment as well. So it kind of sets that stopwatch, and they can put in comments. And again, all these details are going to roll up because you may have several users really entering time against one given task in certain cases. But as I go through, again, time can get quite a bit more granular. I did touch on briefly how the Genius integration works with keeping track of, again, what a user has modified within the system. If they've logged in and made any types of changes on a particular project task or anything like that, but they forgot to enter time, Genius will kind of pick that up and let them know, again, that they may need to enter time on this, and then they can put the comments on that as well. And as they split that up, you can see I can go in and I can enter PTO time or admin time, the Genius I mentioned here as well. And then you can really split that up to kind of like a bulk import as well. So if they prefer to kind of add the time entries at the end of the week instead of on a daily basis, again, those can be kind of entered in a way similar to what you're looking at on the screen here, where again, that can kind of roll up those details at one given time. So this is just one given example. Same goes for Project Assistant. So you can see in this case, this is grabbing any projects or tasks that I'm assigned to. In this case, I can search for details surrounding that. But really, that time tracking can be surfaced anywhere within the system, as Andy mentioned. So we can get very detailed around that just to make it very simple to use. But as I mentioned, this is just kind of one example there.
Brilliant, thanks, Dylan. Is there any other features that you or Andy would like to show us all? I'm conscious that we're approaching the hour and people might have other meetings to go to.
At this point, yep, I think we got through the details we wanted to show today. And again, we're more than happy to kind of schedule some more in-depth calls, so or even answer some more in-depth types of questions. So just let us know. But at this point, that is what we wanted to show today.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much to both of you for joining us today. And as we've mentioned, if anybody else has any questions that they'd like to take offline, please feel welcome to raise them with us, and we can connect you with Andy and Dylan if necessary. If there's been anything that has been of particular interest today, or you'd like to share with a colleague, we've also recorded this session and we'll be publishing that shortly as well. So please feel free to share that. Finally, if you like any features, apps or functionality covered in future user groups, please feel welcome to request this with us, and we'll do our best to support this and bring this up in future sessions. But lastly, just thank you all for attending and for giving us an hour of your time to come and find out the latest things, all things Salesforce and Cloud Coach. So thank you once again, and we'll see you at the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you all.